make sure that we kind of distill this into things that people could kind of have a take-home message and say, yeah, that's interesting to me. And there's three things that I think about in terms of every business and what we as a company try to do and try to distill in the conversations we have with these video interview series. One is every company, these small businesses with fleets, wants better financial stability. They want better operational capability, and they want better customer service. Can you talk to me on in any order that you feel necessary in terms of customer service, being able to be a more solid company operationally, and that financial stability? Do you think you can help on any one of those 1, 2, or 3 dimensions?
Absolutely. I mean, the first that I think of is customer service, because again, that is oriented very much through the rapport that we build, with that client or that potential client. And that's all through communication with the words that we choose. And I think in the past, industries have kind of taken a stab at this where they've had scripts, right? So if there's cold calling, or if there's any kind of, if this, then that, type of operation, that, and fortunately, as we all know, because we've experienced people who we know are reading scripts, is there's a lack of rapport. There's a lack of connectedness, because we just feel like that person is only answering based on what is on that piece of paper or on their monitor, and not based on the human connection that I'm having with them or trying to have with them. And so part of it is, I tell people, is that it has to be inherent in the culture of the company. Right? So it can't be a script, it can, but it's not going to be as effective if it's script oriented, which means that our company, every single individual in our company has to have buy-in. What creates buy-in? What creates buy-in is feeling like you have a place, right? Feeling like you are important, you have value in that company. Well, how do people experience that? They experience that through the system and how it's built and how that system treats them, right, on a regular basis. Again, mostly through communication. If you're sending texts or emails to your boss and they never get back to you, what kind of information is that sending back? I'm low man on the totem pole. I don't really matter. Well, people aren't going to buy into a company where they feel that they're not valuable, right? So a lot of this, again, begins with how we communicate in-house, so that we can build this culture that when it comes to anybody, I always tell people, you should be able, to some extent, to stick anyone on that phone if it's ringing, not just the person who normally holds that job. Anybody in your company, granted, once we get to like very large companies, this changes obviously, but in smaller companies, anybody should have enough truth and knowledge about that company that they can speak to it. Or they can at least say, I can take a message, but I can also answer any questions potentially that you have. And you know what? They're not only in the position to be able to do that, but they want to, right? When we have buy-in in a company, it's like our family. We are committed to seeing the operations work, to seeing the company thrive, to seeing the money, talk about profitability. When everybody has buy-in in a company, there's always a direct correlation to profitability, always, right? So it all starts with that treatment that, that is, I guess, measured, through how we communicate.
So a question that pops into mind as you're talking throughout this course of this is, gosh, everyone has got staffing issues, and staffing and customer service issues, and it's because the language that various generations hear and understand are different. Gen X, Gen Y, millennials, and I hear plenty of people complaining about to millennials. And I've had my share of working with millennials, and some of them deserve it, and some don't. But same with Gen X and Gen Y. Talk to me about cross-generational conversations. You're the owner of a company. You've been running it for 25 years, and you've got to bring some technicians in to help run your company, or you got to service somebody who is in a different generation. How does this help?
Well, first and foremost, I think HR departments were formulated because there was just, there wasn't this intentional design on the front end. And so there was a need for a department that put out fires on the back end. That's changing tremendously, is that now we've even changed the name of HR departments, or like, people supportive or people and culture department or whatever. There's all sorts of names, within industry, which is good because it means that we're becoming more aware of the importance of creating that piece on the front end. So speaking of generations, this is the one that just in a nutshell, I have said this so many times. I love millennials. I think they're phenomenal. And I'll tell you why. Is that I always talk about the generations that came before the millennials as the havers, right? So in my work, I work with value. I really believe I can see people's value through their language. And that's what I'm interested in. So as much as, I might be at a dinner party, people say, what do you do? I'm a language profiler. Okay, nice meeting you, and off they go. That I'm looking, and I always tell people I'm looking for the good goods, right? The good goods, not the bad goods. I'm really looking for your brilliance so that you, again, I mirror that back, you can see it too. Because again, if Superman didn't know he could bend, steal, and fly, he wouldn't be as effective. We need to know what we bring to the table. So bringing out those good goods and being able to define them allows us to be more effective in the value we offer. So when we talk about value, the havers came out of the womb with all this value, because I believe we're born with innate value. Right? We get acquired value down the road, but we start with an innate value. During that earlier generational gap, we were stripped of that value, and we were told, guess what? You only have value when you produce something valuable. So the havers became the important thing for the havers were to have things that proved their value, right? Because they felt that it was inherently stripped from them, not that they were cognitively aware or that we've been cognitively aware of any of this. But this is why the havers, you can dangle a carrot of more money or more prestige or a higher title or things like that in front of most havers, and they'll salivate, right? They'll, okay, that gets me, that becomes my driving force. The millennials, now these are the kids that were raised by the havers, right? We always don't want our kids to have to go through what we went through. These are the kids that everybody on the soccer team got a prize. Everybody's told that they're important. Guess what that has created in them is an inherent knowledge of value. Now, they don't always know what their particular value is, but they come in pretty much demanding, I'm valuable, what are you going to do for me? Now, it's created this understanding, or I guess I could say meaning that we've given it, of entitlement, right? So it comes across like, hey, I just have value for showing up. And on one level, it's true. They do. They get that. The havers forgot that, and they have a lot to teach us in that regard. But unfortunately, because they didn't have to work for that value, right? They don't have, and I'm using this broad, like I'm just using this for conversation's sake, because each individual is different. But in general, what people have said about millennials that they have an issue with is that they don't know how to work for it. So I think that from the have generation, the millennial generation, we really, if we came together and integrated each of our strong suits, said, look, like what we love from you guys is that you know your value, that you're confident in knowing that you're worth more than maybe the treatment that you're receiving, that you're not going to put up with bad pay or bad treatment or any of that, like a lot of us did in, earlier parts of our careers. Those millennials are just like, I'm out of here, because they're not here for money. They're not here for titles. They're here to make an impact. They're here to make an impact. And I think this is the most wonderful thing about that generation. And the generations that are yet to come, is that they came here to make an impact, right? And that's really, I think, what human beings are supposed to be doing, right? We come to this world with the value and the design and the desires and all that to make a positive impact, to serve the world.